So let this be a lesson learned. If you put the shackles on a creative mind like Sam Raimi, you're gonna get a mediocre result that looks something like this. But if you just give him one minute plot point that he has to include within his film, everything else you just tell him, do whatever the hell you want, then you're gonna get bonkers fun. And that pretty much encapsulates what this movie is. Just bonkers, off-the-wall Marvel fun. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was directed by the one and only Sam Raimi. It once again stars Benedict Cumberbatch as our favorite sorcerer, Stephen Strange. It is not only a direct sequel to the 2016 origin story, which was very, very fun, but it's also a direct sequel to WandaVision, the very first Disney Plus MCU miniseries that took Twitter by storm, because we have Elizabeth Olsen returning as Wanda Maximoff / Scarlet Witch in this. And just like in No Way Home, Dr. Stephen Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens a huge portal to the multiverse. However, a threat that I dare not spoil emerges that may be too big for his team of sorcerers to handle. And it's a big Marvel adventure. That's pretty much your plot, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if there's been 34 MCU projects up to this point, so pretty much everything you came to expect. The comedy is certainly there, the action set pieces are spectacular, but the thing that I really think makes MOM stand out above all else is this wonderful direction from Sam Raimi. And let me just start by saying this. Do you guys remember the big Hall H panel from 2019 before things really went to shit in the year 2020? Doctor Strange 2 was easily the project I was intrigued by the most, because when Scott Derrickson was still attached to this project to direct, this was being marketed as the first scary MCU film. And if Scott Derrickson was helming the project, I'm a big fan of Sinister, and I'm really looking forward to what he does with The Black Phone this summer. He's a very capable scary movie director. So when he stepped down from the project due to creative differences, I was a little bit disheartened. The studio still gives him executive producer credit, which I think is a class move on their part. So they countered by giving us the return of Sam Raimi to the superhero realm. And my god, this is such a visually pleasing film. Please go and see this movie on the biggest screen possible, because the imagery that you get from Sam Raimi is as Sam Raimi as it gets. The cinematography of this film feels very much like an Evil Dead film. It definitely feels right out of a superhero movie that you would see in the mid-2000s. The first two Spider-Man films are classics to me. Groundbreaking for the genre. Spider-Man 3, like I said, definitely very disappointing, but I still have a lot of fun with that movie. And this is a studio that knows what kind of filmmaker Sam Raimi is, and they just let him go ham on this project. They basically just told him, do whatever the you want with these visuals. And ladies and gentlemen, this man delivers. Sam Raimi is certainly back. Please, my hope is if and when Doctor Strange 3 is announced, I'm hoping Sam Raimi is signed on to direct that sequel, because he did a wonderful job with this film. Really nice shot composition. And oh so scary. My word, they kept their Hall H promise despite Scott Derrickson stepping down. This is a freaky haunted house style experience. There were children in my theater who were screaming at the top of their lungs when certain things happen in this film. The climax feels very much like one out of an Evil Dead film. It does feel very much like the ending of Spider-Man 1. Extremely visceral, very bloody. This is a hard PG-13 rating here. What it all boils down to, this film is as Sam Raimi gets. I mean, just right down to the Danny Elfman score, which, by the way, I haven't heard his notes in years. What's happened to this guy? The dude is a freaking genius, and he shows it once again with his themes in here. It definitely has that MCU flavor. It definitely feels like one of his themes from the Spider-Man films. But this is more like a Tim Burton Danny Elfman score, if that makes any sense to you guys. And just the way the music is integrated into some of these scary moments and some of these really, really creepy visuals, it's absolutely spectacular. I think technically speaking, this is a really, really pretty movie. The visuals of this film, I think, definitely rival the first film. It isn't so much leaning into the Inception style of visuals. This is definitely a Sam Raimi style visual feast. The monsters Doctor Strange encounters along the way are just so imaginative and inventive, and I had a blast. These action sequences are so damn exciting. Benedict Cumberbatch is very much going to get overlooked in this film, mainly because of the direction and the next actor I would like to talk about, but please do not sleep on this guy, because he continues to prove with this film that he was a perfect casting choice. He is once again extremely confident as Stephen Strange. His poise every time he steps into the frame, that has not changed since the initial film. His posture, he oozes charisma every single time he steps into a scene. He is magnificent in this film. And the trailer did tease a few what-if style cameos. Benedict Cumberbatch also does play the evil version of Doctor Strange that we saw in episode 4 of What If. And he does, my god, that scene was so cool. And I'll address it, that's not a spoiler necessarily because it was in the trailer. We've known that for months and months that evil Sorcerer Strange was going to be in this. And other than that, no spoilers in this video. But the cameos that are in this film were very crowd-pleasing. There's one cameo that we already knew about from the Super Bowl spot, and it definitely got my crowd very, very hyped when I saw this last night. But I'll save this for the spoiler stream, and just a heads up, I will also be talking about Moon Knight once the time comes with a very special panel of people. But there's one other cameo in this film that I absolutely did not see coming. It trumps the Super Bowl spot cameo that was teased there, and my mind was absolutely blown. I was sitting there in the theater last night saying, no fucking way, they did it! And the ramifications for the future of the MCU are very, very bright. Oh, I want to get into further details about that, but I'm going to keep it as vague as I possibly can. Elizabeth Olsen is the best she has ever been as Wanda Maximoff, and this is easily her best performance. She is superb in this feature. Very, very compelling, and this makes me so happy to say that. Riding off of the momentum she was riding in WandaVision, she was my favorite part about that show as a whole. The character study of Wanda Maximoff and the tragedy of her life, that's explored a little bit more deeper in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And the questions that are posed involving her character, and I'm not going to get too deep into spoilers as far as what her role in this story is, but oh my god, she was a scene stealer. Every time she stepped into the frame, I could not take my eyes off of the Scarlet Witch. She was intimidating, she was imposing, and she commanded your attention every single time. Lizzie Olsen, you freaking did it. You were freaking awesome in this film. The character that I found to be the least interesting of the Infinity Saga now just may be the most compelling part in the entire MCU. Or MCM, for that matter. Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Can I still motion to call it that? Like, that sounds more accurate to me. Now, I can sit here and praise MOM as long as I want to. This is a very, very fun theater experience. This is the scary MCU film that we were promised 3 years ago, but it is still definitely very much a mixed bag. MOM definitely does have some issues that I'd like to get into, namely with this first act. Very, very slow. Like, the first half hour of this film, and keeping in mind, this is one of the shorter Marvel films we've gotten, in Phase 4 especially, only sitting at 2 hours and 6 minutes. 30 minutes is a little bit long for a movie to basically be riding the pine. It just felt to me like the movie was going through the motions. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but basically, up until the point when Elizabeth Olsen's character is reintroduced, I don't know, I just found myself kind of like, oh god, is this really where the movie's going? Like, there's a whole angle where Christine Palmer, played magnificently by Rachel McAdams, by the way, she gets married, and we're stuck at that wedding for quite some time. And thankfully, they don't stick to that wedding as long as, like, a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 does. It doesn't really hamper the film too much for me. And the love angle was very, very interesting to me, and it does end on a very heartbreaking note. The big problem with this movie, unfortunate for me to say, is America Chavez. Don't get me wrong, Xochitl Gomez is having a blast with this film. She is clearly very, very excited to be a part of this. And her performance overall as the character is is fine. I love seeing this representation on screen in a Marvel film. But other than the performance itself, the character's pretty boring. Like, she's basically carrying the Wanda Maximoff banner from the Infinity Saga. Every time it cuts back to her, I was like, oh crap, she's in the movie too. I forgot. Her function in this movie is twofold. Number one, she is a heavy exposition machine. Like, my word. It just feels to me that the majority of her dialogue, and granted, this is the fault of the script here, but it mainly just felt like exposition dump. And number two, she is literally just a bridge character. Without spoiling anything, when I say bridge character, I mean that in the most literal sense possible. They try and shoehorn a backstory in there, and granted, it is very touching what they do with her. And I can certainly see why the studio included her in this film, but I feel like if you substituted her out with another character, like a Christine Palmer, for example, and it was just her and Doctor Strange on this journey together, like, again, I'm trying not to get too deep into spoilers, but it definitely doesn't feel like America Chavez had as big of an impact on the film as they would have wanted. And the last issue that I'll say involving Multiverse of Madness, there were a bevy of missed opportunities left on the table. Now, I don't know if this is because Scott Derrickson left the project or anything like that. God, how do I want to put this? You guys remember what made Stephen Strange so compelling in the first film? His sense of discovery, his confusion in the mystic arts and everything going on. They literally bring his ego down to earth. Well, there's something that Doctor Strange does in a previous MCU project, which, again, I'm gonna be as vague as possible about this because this could also spoil other MCU projects. But he makes a certain decision in a big crossover that happened not even a year ago. And I really wish that they would have played more into that, because then it could still retain that endearing character trait about Stephen Strange, is his confusion to new stuff. But here, there's no sense of education or learning anything. There's no real new sense of discovery for this character. Basically, there's a scene in the diner with America Chavez, and he basically has all this knowledge already about the multiverse. And the decision that he makes in a previous Phase 4 project just swept under the rug. And I wanted them to play more into that. And God, I'm trying to be as vague as I possibly can for the purposes of just this video. I'll be happy to talk more about this in the spoiler stream. But despite my issues, my final verdict to you is this. If you're a hardcore fan of the MCU, if you loved WandaVision, if you loved What if you loved the first Doctor Strange film, and if you were a big fan of Spider-Man No Way Home like I was, there's going to be a lot of things within Multiverse of Madness that will very much please you as the Marvel geek. Sam Raimi is certainly here to stay as a director. I sure as hell hope this is not his last entry into this franchise, because this guy knows how to make a superhero movie, man. At least when the studio literally doesn't handcuff him. All in all, I definitely had fun with the Multiverse of Madness, and I'm going to give Doctor Strange 2 a B+. I can't wait to watch this movie again. Certainly a lot of missed opportunities left on the table hold this movie back from being an instant MCU classic. It's certainly not the worst MCU film, though. I do have a couple of friends who were extremely disappointed in this film, and for very much well-warranted reasons. It's definitely not on the level of No Way Home or Shang-Chi, but in terms of the Phase 4 projects, I think it's very much middle of the pack, which is certainly a little disappointing saying that it's very middling, because, like I said, I was most intrigued by this movie coming out of that Hall H announcement, but I would certainly rewatch this movie over both Black Widow and Eternals any day of the week. It's certainly more entertaining than those two. But let me know what you guys thought of Multiverse of Madness down in the comments section below. What was your favorite moment that came out of this film? Obviously, I love coming on here. I love talking about all things geeky, all things related to the MCU in general. I just reviewed Moon Knight over here on the channel, so feel free to go check out that review. It is completely spoiler-free. I will also be doing a Spoiler City live stream with a very special guest of panelists. We're going to be talking about both Moon Knight and Multiverse of Madness. The date is still very much to be determined. I'm still figuring out some things scheduling-wise, so if you want to be the first ones in the know of when that stream is coming out, if you guys want to stay up to date with all of my content, do consider smashing that subscribe button. There's a notification bell right next to it as well. And what the heck, go ahead and smash that like button as hard as you possibly can. Why not? Lots of exciting content hitting this channel very, very soon. We're taking a bit of a break from the MCU. Miss Marvel doesn't come out until June. Thor Love and Thunder is the next big one that comes out Independence Day weekend, if my memory serves me right. I'll also be continuing my Jurassic Park playlist. We're going to be looking at The Lost World some point within the next week. We're getting into that blockbuster season, my friends. I'm very, very excited. Multiverse of Madness is what ultimately kicked this summer off for me. Y'all are the best. Thank you all again so very much. I'm so looking forward to talking all things movies and entertainment with you. And with all that being said, back talk commence!